I'm Dr. Kristen R. Bromley. This video series, which is part of my online music academy, specifically accompanies Note Reading Book 3 from my Method book series. Like all my books, this selection is available to purchase through Amazon and Google Play. For help, see the links in the description below. In the videos which are part of this specific course, I progress through the lessons in Note Reading Book 3, explaining and demonstrating concepts and playing each of the songs and exercises contained therein, so you can hear how they sound and play them right along with me. You are of course welcome to view these videos with or without the book, but with the book you can work through all the songs and exercises, and in the process come to know the entire fretboard and master the skill of playing written notes all along the neck. Alright, let's get to jamming in this lesson. Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome back. Here we are in lesson 17 that goes with Note Reading Book 3. In this lesson, we're working on reading notes in the key of F major and D minor. So let's go ahead and dive in. So we got the F major single octave scale exercise first. So with scale form 1, we could play in 12th position. So we've got the root on the 13th fret of the 6th string, and we've got scale form 1 there. We've also got scale form 1 that we could read this in the 7th position. So our middle finger is on the F on the 8th fret of the 5th string. We've also got in this, for this range, we've got the root on the 3rd fret of the 4th string, so in 2nd and 3rd position, we could read in the key of F major there. Alternatively, with scale form 2, you got the pinky at the 13th fret on the 6th string. We've got that option. And with the pinky at the 8th fret of the 5th string, we have that option. Now, I have read so many of these exercises with scale form 1. I'm actually going to do this one with scale form 2 right there in 5th position. So that's how I'm going to do it. But you can practice all of those ways. If you do, it'll help out your reading. So let's go ahead and do this one. We're going to have 1 and 2 and ready and go and... Okay, and we'll go on over to page 140 and take a look at it 1 octave higher. So we've got with the pinky, the ways that we can play this 1 octave higher, I should say, we've got in scale form 2, we've got that pinky at the 15th fret on the 4th string. So that's one way. that we can play it with scale form 1. You could also put your middle finger on that 15th fret. And with scale form 1 at the 10th fret on the 3rd string, we've got an option there as well. I'm going to go ahead and play it in 12th position with my pinky. So I'm going to stick to scale form 2. Again, just a nice change of pace for what I've been doing so far. So you're going to have 1 and 2 and ready and go and... Okay, and we'll take a look at the minor exercises and scales now. So down on the bottom of page 140, we're starting with this single octave exercise here. With scale form 1 with D minor, we've got the 10th fret on the 6th string. So that's one option. We've got the 5th fret on the 5th string with scale form 1. With scale form 2 with both of these, the pinky on that 10th fret on the 6th string. And the pinky on that 5th fret on the 5th string. That puts us in this range. So I'm going to go ahead though and play it in 5th position with my index finger on the 5th fret. So we're going to go 1 E and 2 E and ready, E and go, E and Okay, and we can look at that an octave higher. So with scale form 1 an octave higher, we've got the index finger on the 12th fret of the 4th string. So that's an option. We also have with scale, and that was scale form 1. We also have scale form 1 at the 7th fret on the 3rd string. With scale form 2, our pinky on that 12th fret on the 4th string. We've got scale form 2. I'm going to go ahead and read it right there in 12th position. So you're going to have 1 E and 2 E and ready E and go E and Okay, let's go on and do the positions now. So we're going to start in position 2 and 3. We're starting with D minor. So there in 2nd and 3rd position, I got my pinky on the D at the 5th fret of the 5th string, and I can play that minor scale, and we'll go ahead and read this one. So we're in 3/4 time, so I'll give us a 3-beat count in. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, let's flip on over to page 142, and we'll do the F major scale in that position. Of course, it's the same notes, but you can run that scale if you need to. So we're going to go 1 and 2 and ready and go and... Okay, let's go over and do some melodies on page 143, starting with By the Waters of Babylon. I'll give us 3, 4, 1 in the count off, and we'll catch beat 2. So 3 and 4 and 1 and... Okay, and we'll do number 8, Emmeline. I'll give us 3, 1, 2 in the count off, and we'll be in. 3, 1, 2. Okay, let's go on to America the Beautiful, number 9. So with this one, we do have an accidental in there. We've got F sharp in a couple different spots. So our F natural that is at the 3rd fret of the 4th string, F sharp is going to be at the 4th fret. For the F sharp that we normally play the F on the 6th fret of the 2nd string, you could go up and use the F sharp at the 7th fret. With the fingerings in this case, it's probably going to work best to use the F sharp that's at the 2nd fret of the top string. But whatever works for you is just fine. So I'll give us a 3-beat count in. We'll catch beat 4 in that pickup measure. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we'll flip on over to page 144. So we're going to be in 5th position now. Starting with the F major scale, we've got our pinky at the 8th fret on the 5th string. We can play scale form 2, scale form 1, part of it, and scale form 1, part of it on the bottom there. We'll go ahead and read this one. We got 1 and 2 and ready and go and... We'll go to page 145, do number 11. So now we're doing the D minor key, D minor scale in that position. So 1 and 2 and ready and go and... Okay, and let's do some melodies. So the Mockingbird Song, or Hush Little Baby. 1, 2, ready, and... And we'll do Sincerely. It's in 3/4 time. I'm going to give us 3, 1, 2 in the count off. 3, 1, 2. And we'll flip on over to page 146. Oh My Darling Clementine. I'm going to give us 3, 1, 2, and we'll be in that pickup measure. 3, 1, 2. Okay, and we'll move up to the next position. So we're going to be in position 7 and 8. We're starting with the D minor scale in this position, so you might want to run through that. And we'll play number 15. So we got 1 and 2 and ready and go and... Okay, and we'll go on over to page 147 and do the F major scale in position 7 and 8. So the major one. So you're going to have 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and... Okay, let's flip on over to page 148. We'll do some melodies in this position. So I'm going to give us 3, 4, 1, 2 on Kumbaya. We'll catch beats 3 and 4 in the pickup. 3, 4, 1, 2. And going down the road, I'll give us 3 beat count and we'll catch beat 4 in that pickup. 1, 2, 3. Now in reading that one, we came across the E flat note. I grabbed E flat at the 11th fret on the 6th string for that low one, and then I grabbed it at the 8th fret on the 3rd string for that higher one. So hopefully you caught those. We'll do the Streets of Laredo. I'll give us 3, 1, 2, and we'll be in on beat 3. 3, 1, 2. Okay, we'll go on over to the next position. So in this next position on page 149, we're going to start with the F major scale. We've got our pinky at the 13th fret of the 6th string. We're in 10th and 9th position. Now with this exercise, there's lots of 16th notes, so I'm going to go ahead and count it off kind of slow. So now I have 1 E and 2 E and ready, E and go, E and Let's flip on over to page 150 and we'll do the D minor exercise, D minor scale exercise in that position. We're in 6/8 time, so I'll count us off with 1 and a 2 and a, but we'll go a bit slower than that. 1 and a 2 and a. Okay, and we'll do some melodies. East Virginia. I'm going to give us a 3-beat count in, and we'll be in with 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, and we'll do fall. I'll give us a 3-beat count in. 1, 2, 3. And we'll do Cielito Lindo. I'll give us 3, 1, 2 in the pickup. 3, 1, 2. on to the next position. So we're going to be up in 12th position, starting with the D minor. So if you need to review that scale, you may want to do it. The D starts at the 12th fret on the 4th string. We're going to go 1 and 2 and ready and go and. Okay, and we'll flip on over to page 152, and we'll do the F major exercise in this position. So we're going to have 1 and 2 and ready and go and. Okay, and we'll go on over to number 27, Mary Ann. 1 and 2 and ready and go and. Okay, and number 28, Rockin' My Soul. 1, 2, ready, and. And viva l'amor! 3, 1, 2. And we'll flip on over to page 154 and do Lasst uns Ephron. So 3-2 is like 3-4 kind of. It's got 3 beats per measure, but the half note is 1 beat. So you can sort of look at it, you can count it with 6 counts if you want to count the quarter notes at the tempo that we're going at, or you can count the quarter notes like eighth notes. However you want to do it, totally works. I'm going to give us 4 beat count in, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we'll be in just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we'll go take a look at the double octave exercises. So these are just designs so you can practice shifting if you want. In previous lessons, I've just been doing it one time, shifting one way, and that's what I'm going to do here, except for those initial lessons where we looked at the different ways that we could shift. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one way we could do it. So I got my middle finger on the F at the 8th fret on the 5th string, and I've got scale form 1 there. And then if I shift up to 10th position or 9th position and then 10th position, I've got scale form 1 again. So that's how I'm going to go ahead and play this one. We're going to have 1 E and a 2 E and a ready E and a go E and a. Okay, we'll go over to page 155 and do the minor one. So I'm going to take with this one and use the form 1 at the 5th fret. So 5th fret of the 5th string, and then up to the 7th fret on that 3rd string. So I'm going to use those ones. So we're going to have 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, and we'll do Snake Charmer. Same way. So I'm going to give us a 3-beat count in. 1 and 2 and 3 and... Okay, and that wraps us up for this lesson. Of course, those exercises where you're shifting, you can practice in multiple ways. If you want to practice more with shifting from position to position, like was taught in earlier lessons, then you can go back and play exercises throughout the lesson in positions other than the ones specified, and then shift either to finger things easier or shift to accommodate the range, and you can play that way and it works great. Hope you're doing well with the guitar. If you're learning notes like this, then you're doing awesome. This is a really advanced skill. Take care. We'll see you again. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For help with other guitar playing skills, check out more of my method books and the numerous lessons available as part of my online academy here on YouTube. You can find more information about me and my products at kristenbromley.com. Take care.